Hi everyone, welcome to the final episode of Radio Rocketman for 2024. Returning to you fully live and with me in all his gloriousness, in his tactile form. Luigi, hello Luigi, how are
Hi,
you?
George. We are upgrading our game these days. We've
We've
brought in the cameras. It's happening.
we've
Audio, visual.
an audiovisual sensation. Indeed,
And
Luigi.
we've got a very special episode for everyone today. We're gonna recap a little bit what the crazy year that has been in global politics, and we're gonna make some predictions for next year. So I'm really looking forward to that, George. Do you want to jump right into that?
What do you want to do? You want to do predictions first or the recap of
Let's do the recap. It was a pretty silly year. We've got a lot of material.
it was an avalanche of a year, I would dare say. In terms of news, we had, I mean, I summed it, I think, a few episodes ago. We have about half the countries on this planet experiencing extreme political chaos. You want to go France, Germany has elections coming up. It's going to be the center-right party, people. You heard it here first.
So
But then
let,
after that, it's going to be spicy because second party coming up in those elections anticipated to be is going to be the far right party, of which
yes,
Elon, I heard recently supported through his weight on. That was a few days ago, right?
yeah,
Elon is for the alternatives. Elon has always been for the alternatives, people. He's an
surprise,
alternative guy.
surprise. Look, before we jump into Germany, let's take a small step back. It was a very so more than 60 countries, or like about half of the world's population, actually voted in elections this year. It was a monumental year, and the trend was a very clear shift towards the right and more often the far right. Now, there's reasons we can give for that. I think the big one has been inflation. Yes, inflation has come down, but people are living through a very harsh economic time. And they are responding to that basically by punishing whoever has been governing them for the last 4 years. There have been some exceptions, but the trend overwhelmingly has been one of incumbent parties either losing outright or losing part of their support. And we can go through
Yes.
several
We
examples.
had India and Japan losing majorities or failing to get super majorities in India's case. And then we had governments outright losing with the famous example of the United States, of course. The
Yes.
greatest of political comebacks. I think that's the one that encapsulates 2024. The comeback king. He returned. I returneth. So we've got that, I think, Luigi.
Yeah.
The main thing we'll be summarizing in the recap. But yeah, as you said, uh, if you want the macro picture, yeah, I mean, they all came up short. They all came up short against the extreme pressures of inflation. They blamed the pandemic, they blamed Russia's invasion, of course, contributing factors, but they did fuck all or not nearly enough as governments, with more of the blame, I would say, falling on the more powerful governments, for instance, the United States, I mean, Joe Biden, and he got his ass handed to him. Yes, he was also dying by the day.
Slightly.
A slight deterioration in his capabilities. But
Cognitive.
still, but
Yeah.
still, if the guy had delivered on inflation, Roosevelt was fucking dying in his fourth term. I mean, and they still voted for him. I mean, it doesn't matter. Your actions matter. Yeah, optics obviously are very important, but I'm willing to bet that if Biden had come out strong and immediately as the inflation started picking up, he implemented price freezes and wage freezes, and he went really hardcore on it. I'm willing to bet the people would have supported him. And I've got historical examples to back it up with Nixon doing the exact same thing during the oil crisis in the 70s. And the voters overwhelmingly voted for him a year later. And then he got taken down because he was tricky dick. But that was besides the point. The
Yeah.
voters supported him. Yeah, sorry, Luigi.
Look, 100%. And like Trump comes in, Trump exploits the let's say the nasty economic situation, comes back in, he's promising tariffs, he's promising deportations. Is he gonna do half of that? Most likely not. But here's what I find most funny of all. We talked about Elon a second ago. Elon is currently like the de facto economic advisor slash economic czar of
The
the fucking
king
big.
of economics,
Yes.
Luigi. The great South African genius
Yes.
of Emerald Mine fame, we all know. And yeah,
Bringer of rockets,
he
designer of cars that mostly break down but are slowly yeah,
he's
he
experiencing his renaissance, Luigi.
honestly, I wouldn't have that on my bingo card. Like usually you have billionaires having a very active role, but a behind the scenes
Yeah.
kind of role. Elon likes the spotlight.
And I
He
mean,
also has that.
sorry, Liz, the moment you mentioned that, everybody else has fucking lined up to kiss the ring. They're all giving 1 million each to his inaugural fund. All of them. Mark Zuckerberg, all the douchebags, folks, they're lining up to kiss the fucking ring. That's what the oligarchs are gonna do in this situation. That's what they always do. They're gonna kiss the ring of the fucking arch populist douchebag in hopes that he grants them favors because he resembles more of a king than a fucking president.
A mob boss,
Emma
George.
boss. I agree. I
I
agree. The
am the
ultimate.
Corleone. No, but 100%, I'm with you. And look, Elon probably got the best return on investment there has ever been. Like the guy spent $250 million, like he's worth 80 or 100, so he has money to spare, and he basically bought the U.S. government. Like he's gonna be in charge of writing any laws that influence his businesses for at least 4 years. That's a pretty sweet deal.
It is. But I mean, if you account 40, how many billions he spent on Twitter as well, it was more costly, still worth it for Elon. Because he becomes the king businessman of the United States, basically. And I
Supreme.
mean,
Yeah.
the way they're all kissing the ring, Luigi, and taking advantage of another shitty loophole with the inaugural fund, uh, not being regulated by campaign finance. What the fuck is this shit, America?
I was
Whatever. Taking advantage of that, and they're all giving 1 million each, and I'm like, dude, I mean, do we have to pretend this is a democracy at this point? Because, people have voted in the electoral college. What is this shit? Why is he getting paid 1 million each by every fucking oligarch in the United States? It's unacceptable. It's
you have to kiss the ring.
unacceptable.
Look,
I
and
mean, and then how
yeah,
how how is trade policy decided? Is it decided according to who gave the most millions? Is it decided
yes,
according?
that, that's
It's a
exactly what happened.
joke.
It depends on how exposed your business is to China, which brings us into a huge topic, and we can link that into a prediction for next year. Are we gonna have that trade war with China? Like
Because,
Elon, I
yeah,
think has a lot to gain from that because if you think about how Tesla operates, like Tesla has a lot of competition from Chinese electric cars. So I am very confident that Elon wants the
you
protectionism.
think
So
so? Because
yeah, I
he's
think
gonna
so.
lose access to China, right? If that
That's a
goes like
market
it, and that's a
that,
huge market for Elon. That
but
that's
you
the
you protect yourself
every
from
other
cheap
in the
competition
yeah.
and you secure your position in bigger markets.
In
So
every other, I mean,
yes.
almost. I mean, in the European and American markets. Let's be
So
clear.
I think Tesla overwhelmingly benefits from tariffs on Chinese electric cars. I think that's one of the reasons we've done some already. So we need to come up with a new title for Elon at some point, like Secretary of Memes or Chief
Secretary
Dogecoiner.
of Memes and Good Policy. We've discussed the douchebag so many times. It's
Yeah.
unacceptable the position he holds. You can't be the recipient of probably the most grants and subsidies from the United States government and decide who gets the fucking grants and subsidies. It's ridiculous, people. How much more ridiculous can it get? The hamster decides who gets the subsidies. This dying chipmunk.
the fact that we have the biggest recipient of subsidies also being the biggest political contributor
Oh yeah.
to political campaigns is it's kind of, I mean, kind of surrealistic, kind of we're really living on the wrong timeline kind of thing. But okay, for a second, let's move away from the US, fun as it is. The biggest political fail of this year, for me at least,
But shit,
was
all my predictions are for the US, Luigi. I
oh
haven't got any. Yeah, go on.
no, let's keep it flowing. We can come back to the US.
Yes,
Biggest
yes.
pol biggest political fail of the year, Emmanuel, Napoleon, Macron, lighting himself on fire, politically speaking, for absolutely no reason,
He's been
calling a
failing
summit.
for a while, though. He's been failing for a while. We gotta be honest.
But we reached stratospheric levels of fail this
Yes,
year.
yes.
Like
Every time he fails upwards. It's an
he,
amazing
he
phenomenon.
surpasses his own limits.
Yes, yes, yes. He appointed another wanker, didn't he? A
Yeah,
centrist,
he
I
did.
heard. A village centrist, a centrist who represents the rurals.
So,
I don't know
so
how it's gonna work out. I doubt it's gonna last, Luigi, because once again, he refuses to appoint a guy at the least from the center left.
I mean, fuck the people that actually won the elections,
Fuck
George.
the voters.
We are
I'm
not doing democracy.
Emanuela. I make the best macarons. I've got the best policies. You gotta work more. It's clear.
It was so weird what he did. So he called a snap election for no reason, lost his majority, and since then, like France has been locked into this like constant political crisis, let's say,
Yeah.
lack of leadership crisis, we could say. His approval ratings have hit rock bottom. That's pretty much an accomplishment when you're starting
And
from the Eiffel Tower.
yes, but I mean a fact of life when you're a French president. The thing
No,
is, I mean, we've mentioned it. It's basically the voters are divided in three blocks: the left, the center, the far right, and never those three shall meet. So I mean, you've got it divided by three. You can have a president.
yeah. And I mean, as it has been for many years, the center has been imploding.
Oh
The
yes.
right has been winning most of that. But in some occasions, we've seen the left come out on
I
top
mean,
as
the
well.
left coalition is bigger, but the far right, is simply one party, Le Pen's party. So it's got more cohesion. That's the thing.
Mhm.
Because the left is Greens, communists, socialists, and Mélenchon's party.
Oh, fascists together, strong,
But
George.
I mean, the left has to
Yeah.
unite because we're weaker. That's the whole
Well,
fucking
yeah.
point.
They did unite, and still
Yes.
they couldn't come close to forming a government. So
They got the biggest vote, the biggest share of parliament, but yes, they
yeah.
didn't get the majority.
And still got the biggest sort of
The biggest
middle
fuck you.
finger.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
biggest fuck you
They
from
get
the
nothing. Yeah. So you can
yeah.
expect political deadlock. Germany, we've mentioned, Luigi. We're going to do the two biggest in Europe. Dude, Europe's fucked. You all know it. I mean, but we're going to do the two biggest. And primarily the reason Europe's fucked is because the two biggest countries in Europe are experiencing extreme political turbulence. Germany is going to have elections. I think Germany, actually, Luigi, is going to get more stable for a while after the elections because you're basically going to have the Christians ruling again. But in the long run,
Unless un
this will not work out because the Christians, people, who has ruled Germany for the past 15 years? Why is Germany fucked up? You gotta ask these questions, these basic questions. If you wanna arrive at, because
too
it's not the
complex.
center left. Scholz has been there for a fucking hot minute.
Yeah,
Yeah, he fucked up, but he was fucked up. You cannot blame
agreed.
the center left for Germany's situation. It has it's rooted strictly on what the fuck the conservatives have been doing for 15
Yeah.
years, which is spending as little as possible on infrastructure and the rest, doing standard conservative bullshit.
Austerity. They've been
Yes,
doing the austerity they tried to
austerity
impose
when
on other
none was
nations.
needed, though,
Exactly.
Luigi, because we
Exactly.
were talking about the nation that exported the most shit in the world. They
Yeah.
had the biggest fucking vault of fucking money from exports that has ever existed, and they
Look,
refused to spend it on vital shit like
here
infrastructure.
here's
Yes.
how the Christian Democrats destroyed Germany. Back in the Euro crisis, they implemented this rule in their constitution, which basically says you cannot run deficits as a fucking government, which is insane, right? In modern
Yes.
economies, every economy runs a deficit. You can do that if the economy is growing faster than the deficit. Now, when you come and say the government must balance the budget no matter what, you are basically tying your hands and ensuring your economy is gonna be shit because you are not getting the public investment you need long term. To change that, you need an act of parliament that requires a 66% majority, which you will never get in today's political environment. So,
And
Germany,
Scholz wants to change that, but it's almost impossible to do. And when the fucking conservatives implemented this, it was the only period of time where it would work because Germany was doing phenomenally well in terms of surpluses.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the good times will not last forever. And now German politics is completely paralyzed. Yeah,
yeah. And lo and behold, the far right is rising in Germany. Oh, I'm total surprise, mon ami.
total. I
I
never
mean,
expected it.
yeah.
The Germans and
Oh
the
no.
far right. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
So a combination of, let's say, insufficient government spending and rising prices as everywhere has got the Germans pretty angry. I really hope the far right, the AfD, doesn't outperform in the coming
Yes,
elections. I think the elections are on in February.
February.
Yeah, late February. I think one day, 23rd of February, which is almost the anniversary of the Ukraine war. Uh,
Go to Ukraine then.
Here's my hot prediction. No, not really a hot prediction. The Ukraine war will end almost immediately with Ukraine ceding land. Donny, the Orange Menace, the US president, will ensure. So here's how I think the conversation goes. No more weapons until you negotiate, Zelensky. And yeah, I imagine we're going to see a peace process relatively soon, maybe even before the anniversary of the war, which is the 24th of February. More importantly, is that a good thing? I think that long term, this is, even though it's going to be a victory for Putin, I think this is how it needs to go. Ukraine is always gonna was always going to lose some land out of this war. The longer we wait, the more people die, I think. And therefore, to come back to your earlier point, who gains or loses territory in the next few days or in the next few weeks will really matter in terms of shaping the border when the peace process comes. So losing territory in the last days of the war is like the worst case scenario if you are Ukraine, I think.
My only consideration it's like there's a high possibility that it's gonna go down the way you laid out. My only concern is, if it doesn't work out, if Putin doesn't want to negotiate because he's clearly winning at this point. Of course, there's the damage to his economy because of the sanctions, and there's also Donald Trump being added into the mix. I think there's also a potential things can get very explosive very fast,
Yeah,
and that's going to be the worst possible timeline. Or it goes down the way you lay out, and I think the way most people expect things to go down in terms of Ukraine.
yeah.
Uh,
But you are right, it can go both ways. So I think Trump is
yeah.
going to do the classic carrot and stick approach. Ukraine, I'm not going to supply you any more weapons. But Russia, if you don't come to the negotiating table, I'm going to double down on how much weapons I'm giving them. So he's going to try to force both sides, I
That's what
think,
he
to the
said.
table.
And
Yeah.
that's the plan he has laid out for us in his infinite wisdom. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. How will Putin play ball with this? Is he willing
Yeah.
to go all in with Ukraine, Trump? If Putin doesn't play ball, I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know
He's a
either.
dying McNugget.
Look, the only thing I'm confident that Trump is gonna do is cut taxes. Like he's gonna
Oh
cut,
yeah,
cut taxes
this we
because
have
that's
agreed on
yeah,
from the very first episode.
yeah,
But guys, we've been through his presidency. We
yeah.
know about the only thing the Republicans can achieve together is cut fucking taxes. And by the way, not your taxes, corporate taxes.
The important ones.
The important unless we're speaking to corporations. It
Look,
ain't gonna do much.
for sure, in order of priority for Trump, I would say it's cut taxes for my businesses and myself. Then it's
Deport the black people, the brown people, the ones who are eating our dogs.
I would say after cutting taxes, it's something like putting tariffs on China and sort of being able to say,
It's one of the
yeah.
two. Yeah, yeah,
No, no,
yeah. Because
I think like the tariffs are a priority, but a much lower priority than the taxes part. So we're gonna do
yeah,
tax cuts. Maybe we do tariffs. The deportations, I don't think we're gonna see any of that. I think that was just campaign fluster.
he's got Tom, the human, the human, the almost human. He's got him going around telling people they're going to start separating families again. I don't know how hardcore they're going to go. They're going to start with criminals, as they said. And by criminals, they mean every poor fucker who has a criminal record. I mean, the criminality can vary. But yeah, they're gonna start with that. We'll see what happens. If we're gonna have the Gestapo fucking driving down the streets in vans, in unmarked vans, we'll let you know. Anything's possible with Donald Trump. His only limit is his incompetency, I believe.
Wow.
He
Wow.
dreams big.
That is like the speed of light, George.
He
A
dreams so
physical.
big, but his limits, but his capabilities are so incompetent. So it's a beautiful thing to witness in motion. We'll see what he achieves. We'll see. He's going to have extreme power once again. I believe last time, Luigi, that the pandemic kind of stopped him in his tracks.
Yeah,
I
for
think that
sure.
in the last year he was gonna go more extreme. But he couldn't. He couldn't because literally we all had to get locked up in our homes for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that Trump was punished about the
Yes,
pandemic, but Biden was punished about inflation, which
yes.
neither of them was responsible for, right? I mean, it's sort of a
Primarily,
natural
no.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Trump for the pandemic, although his response to it was fucking piss poor as always.
Yeah, I mean,
People
so
have forgotten, I think, Luigi. People have forgotten how extreme sports Trump can be about political events
I
and
mean,
developments.
I miss the late night tweets
Oof.
about nuking some country or, I love my dear friend Vladimir Putin, who is the
Fire,
strongest.
fire and fury. We will
Anyway,
rain, we will rain the N word. It's the N word, nuclear. I hate to say it. My uncle was very
Uh,
strong on nuclear. But
we,
yeah, it's gonna
we-
be, and I think literally, have you noticed? I think we're in the lull before the storm right now. We
for
had
sure, for
an
sure.
avalanche of shit happening right before Christmas, and
Yeah.
now everybody is just sort of
It's
laying
pretty
low.
quiet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
quiet.
Until the new year. But we spoke about Putin a second earlier. It's very easy to forget Russia also had elections this year. Do you remember that? Yes. And here's the funny part.
Putin
Putin was
won, the
Putin was
great
reelected.
comrade.
Putin, the greatest of comrades, won with 88% of the vote.
A
The,
remarkable accomplishment.
the other 12% missing in Siberia.
Everybody voted for Comrade Putin.
Or
12% does not exist.
or you go to the Gulag, comrade. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a surprisingly straightforward calculation.
Democracy is a beautiful thing, comrade.
Speaking of like
Democracy,
inflation,
comrade, is the rule of the majority. The 12%, fuck them. They are a minority, comrade.
so speaking of sort of Russian influence stuff, Syria also like the
Yeah,
Assad
I've
regime
briefly
fell.
covered
Yes,
the fall of the regime of La Salad.
well, La Salad, Al-Bashar, the salad, the Caesar salad.
He has
No, but
finally fallen. After
uh,
14 years of sponsoring by the great Sultan, by what was it Mr. Balotelli called him, by the Prime Minister of Israel.
Wow. I,
Erdogan, by his, I think his investment finally paid off. But I don't
yeah.
want to put it all
And
on Erdogan because clearly the Syrian people didn't like Assad.
the Syrian people didn't like him. Hold on. I think there's an element there of Russia's influence, Russia also losing influence in the region, right? You are caught up in the Ukraine war. You can't support that Syrian regime that you propped up as Russia for the better part of like 2 decades. So, it's funny how like global events sometimes interconnect. When you are fighting a war in Ukraine,
Oh,
your
yeah.
economy is shit. You can't suddenly
Yes.
financing Syria.
And I think
Talks about
long term, Luigi, they're going to lose their bases in Syria. I think long term.
yeah, I'd agree as well with Turkey coming in and so on. Yeah,
It's very,
because
and it took about 15 years for this whole thing to clear out, which is a tremendous human toll on the people of Syria. Jesus Christ, I mean, it's been 14 years of constant war, with every fucking foreign power involved in getting involved in this and, financing, providing weapons, increasing the human casualties, basically, to get a bigger slice of the land when the fucking dust clears. And now we have Israel as well,
yeah,
basically invading Syria and getting slicing a part of that they want to permanently occupy, they've said, for the time being, because they don't like the new government, and they didn't like the one before either.
yeah,
They don't get
but
along with their neighbors.
not really. Whether that is their fault or not is a matter of debate, but for sure that region has been even more volatile than it usually is, and it's the most volatile region on the fucking planet.
Oh, yes. And what happens now with the McNugget in the mix, Luigi? What do you think happens?
Oof, honestly, I'm pretty sure the McNugget is happy with how Syria played out. So Donny's pretty happy. He's like, Erdogan, he's so strong.
He's strong.
Finally, he wanted that for 170 years. Suddenly,
My good friend, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, my good friend, so strong. He gave so. Nice. Now we can do the
yeah,
facial.
yeah, yeah.
So strong. It's so strong.
I'm slightly, slightly stronger. I'm stronger. I
My
think it's
weapons are
obvious.
slightly bigger.
My missiles are at least 3 meters bigger than his.
But he's strong. He's strong. I like him.
Right,
Yes, I
let's
mean it's a win. It's a win for his mate, for his mate in the
it's
Middle
a
East.
win for the US sphere of influence, let's put it that way.
Yes,
It's a loss for Russia, therefore a win for the US
but it's
automatically.
getting muddled, Luigi. The whole fucking thing is getting muddled because Turkey does not clearly play in the Western sphere of influence.
Definitely. As long as Erdogan is
Turkey
there.
plays both sides. I think more masterfully than most countries.
I don't know if I would use the word masterfully, but
I would use it,
gone.
Luigi. The great Sultan is
Wow.
going from strength to strength, Luigi.
Wow. But
It's his century.
how much stronger can one man get? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, he's getting there in age as well. How old is
he's
he? How old is Putin for
fuck
that
me.
fucking math?
Putin is almost 70, I believe. Let me check.
Spring chicken, spring chicken. I mean,
72. So
72.
72.
Oh, he's got decades to reign still,
Erdogan is
people.
70. So yeah,
In the
many more
prime
decades.
of his life.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So
we've
let's
got, I would say, an unstable environment playing out, I think would
for
be
sure.
fair almost everywhere. South Korea as well. They keep
South Korea.
impeaching them. They
We
keep
haven't even
impeaching them, people. It's gonna be impeachment. The impeachment bonanza is happening in South Korea.
South Korea pulling like almost a military coup for no reason was not on my bingo card for
Oh,
this year.
definitely,
Like
definitely. It was like, I mean, they turned the clock back 50 fucking years in a fucking night.
the fuck was that? Because some like lame duck president was like, "This is my best bet of holding on to power." You're like, "What the fuck? Like this is not the 80s, dude. The Cold War
Yeah.
is over." Like Yeah, you can use the I have communists across the border kind of excuse, but
And I
it
mean,
doesn't really
yeah,
fly these
don't
days.
accept the Dior bag for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that as well.
What
But
else, Luigi? Should
so
we
so let's
predictions?
we didn't talk about the UK yet, which
Oh
I also
yeah.
found a very
Nobody's
funny.
talking about the UK anymore.
It was
I'm sorry, guys.
it was a very funny moment in history though, because we elected, like they elected, the most boring man in politics.
Yes.
Here I stand for nothing, Starmer.
Has he
Here,
stood for anything
I
since
don't think
then?
so.
He's done a
No.
few things with his budget. Bah, will it stem the tide? He's also had a few scandals. I don't want to go through here. Nobody cares.
I I don't want to either. All right, let's do the predictions then for next year. So there aren't that, because we did all of the elections this year, there
Yes,
isn't that much to sort of scheduled events are scarce for next
yes.
year. Germany is going to go to elections, like already mentioned. Most likely it's going to be the right. There is a chance the far right outperforms once again. I don't see the center left coming
No,
back, holding on to
not in these
power.
elections. No fucking way. Yes.
Yeah. So Germany goes maybe fascist again. We'll we'll see
Next
about that
time.
one.
Next
Yeah.
time, it's a distinct possibility. But I would say in these elections, they're going to go conservative again.
All right. So Ukraine war, does it end or does it escalate?
Most likely then.
Nice. I'll agree with that as well. Trade war with China. Does the Donny bring back the most magnificent tariffs there
I
have
mean, is he
ever
gonna
been?
implement whatever the fuck 20% tariffs on every import that comes into the United States?
No,
I doubt that
he's
because
not
if he
gonna do that.
actually goes through with that, it's gonna be catastrophic for
Yes.
prices.
And it also, yeah, it means inflation. It also means like you would be shooting yourself on the foot. So
Yes.
here's what I think he will do. I think it's gonna be the classic Trump thing of I do the bare minimum in terms of tariffs, but I sell it as if I'm, you know,
I
as if
am the
I've got,
coming of
yeah,
Christ.
yeah, yeah, basically.
But in terms of tariffs. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
He's a
he's
good
going to
salesman.
oversell. Yeah, he's going to oversell the bare minimum that he actually does on tariffs. And does it really matter? Because I think the important tariffs Biden did recently, right? We did tariffs on the most important industries. So there isn't that much left to tariff that has strategic importance. The stuff left is going to hurt the consumer, which I don't think that Donny wants to do, really.
He's attuned
Yeah,
to what the average American is feeling. He's definitely going to take into account. Yes, it's a negotiating strategy. He has pretty much destroyed the Trudeau's government. Although I mean, it was going towards self-destruction by itself. But I mean, it's he threatened the EU recently with buying more American oil and gas, to
yeah.
which the EU replied, "Of yeah, we want that." So I mean, the first threat didn't land very harshly in the
Here's
EU
another
Council of Elders.
Here's another one he demanded. Trump does the classic like NATO countries must pay
Yes.
more for defense. And I think he recently demanded that they pay 5% of
Ah,
national
yeah, yeah, which
of
was two,
GDP.
right? It
I
was
mean, it's
two.
the rules are two. The US, which is the biggest military spender, is spending three. So everyone going up to five is like, I think it's again the classic Trump thing. Start from a high
A
negotiating
very
base.
high position. I want you to spend 90% on weapons.
You are only going to spend 2.5. That's fine.
He trims big, as I said.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right, what else do we have for 2025? I think those are the big ones.
Yeah,
I don't think that
it's
there's something huge happening elsewhere. I think it's gonna be unexpected events rather than calendar events.
yes, and we're gonna be adding Trump into the mix, which will prove exciting as always.
Spicy.
It's gonna be spicy. It's gonna be spicy. I think it's fair to say that America is pretty much descending into barbarism. And we're gonna be here to cover it, folks.
Nice. We'll be here for the good stuff.
But I mean,
bringing
yeah,
you.
it's a funny barbarism. It's not like the one we had last time. It's full of shits and giggles.
Well, I'm entertained, George. I
Yeah,
think I think that that was it for today. Let's call it a glorious day. Thank you. Yeah.
it was a loose session, folks,
Yeah.
because we don't have many news. We don't have many news this week. We had a lot of news in a row, very packed tightly, and now we're waiting. We're waiting, but I think it's gonna be the next few years are gonna be very spicy. Are gonna be
So,
very
uh,
spicy. I mean, we've got the return of the king,
I
as we've
mean,
mentioned multiple times.
there's no boring years when the dawn is in charge of the planet.
It's gonna be the farewell tour, has to be noted. Probably
unless,
more.
unless, unless,
Lots
unless
of
we
people
rewrite
are
some,
saying.
we'll rewrite the electoral laws. It's amazing. It's gonna be great.
If it was good enough for Roosevelt, it's good enough for me. Many people are saying I'm just as good.
And let's be honest here. Who likes voting anyways, George?
Roosevelt destroyed the Nazis. I destroyed the wokeists. They're too
All
woke.
right.
But yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be exciting, folks. That's the summary. That's the summary. And we'll be here, and we'll be here to cover
Amazing.
it
Thanks, George.
because it's what we
See
do.
you. See you next year. Have a good one.
Have a good one, folks. See you soon. See you soon. Enjoy your New Year's festivities.
Sai- Sayonara.
Sayonara.